Mavic Mini camera app. You ready? Let's deep dive. Click this top where it says 2.7K, and the first thing you want to do as a beginner is go into 1080p. Now, it doesn't have 24 frames a second, which is Hollywood quality, but 30 frames a second is good enough for beginners. 25 frames a second is also very good for beginners. I would say 30 frames a second. I like 30 frames a second look. So you can even go 1080p at 60 frames a second, which is ridiculously fast, right? And ridiculously cool too. And you can always slow it down when you go at 60 frames a second in case you want to do slow motion stuff. Now, as a beginner, you don't even need 60 frames a second. So I recommend you start at either 25 or 30. You can do 2.7K. You come from a film background, knock yourself out with 2.7K, but as a beginner, 30 frames a second is good at 1080p. You can also go into quick shots. It has like a little tutorial there for you to view. I'll do a separate video for this. I just want to show you how to work the camera app, but it's so cool that within the camera app, you can just access the quick shots and do all of these cool little stuff, right? That's pretty much it for video. You select your frame rate and stuff, and then you can jump between photos if you want. Single shot or time lapse. Time lapse is if you want the camera to automatically snap shots for you every 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 7 seconds. You can do up to every 60 seconds. I don't know people who do 60 seconds. I know most people do every 2 seconds. However, single shot is what most of you guys are going to use to initially get started. All that means is you snap one single shot at a time, and that happens every time you hit this little circle like this. Parang! Also, bear in mind, on your controller, you also have a physical button right here to snap a photo, and you also have a physical button right here to snap a video. You can hit any one at any time and start taking videos or start taking photos at the touch of a button, or just use the little circle on your screen to snap a photo. Whichever one works, it's fine. Let's go back into here. Okay, so once you hit that little box at the top, you can toggle between video, you can toggle between photo, and you have your quick shot modes. Very simple, very easy. Video has a red circle and photo has a white circle. Once you're finished with that mode, look at the bottom right where it says auto. You can hit that and change it to manual. Once you go to manual, you could hit that at the bottom and go between auto and manual. Auto and manual. As a beginner, all you really need is auto. You don't really even need to touch manual, right? But you can go to manual if you're a photographer or you're coming from a photographer background and you want to mess with it a little bit. Your ISO basically gives you artificial light. So if the place is getting dark, you'll want to bump the ISO up, right? And that will give you light. You see that? That's artificial light. With this artificial light does come grain, so be very careful when you're flying at night. You'll bump it up, but things can get very grainy. Your shutter speed is important too. The faster your shutter speed, the more you can freeze motion. So if your shutter speed is really fast, like that's like super fast, then not only does your image get dark, as you can see here, but you'll be able to freeze motion. Like literally, you won't be able to tell the person is moving. Whereas if I take the shutter speed down all the way to 4 seconds, then guess what happens? That shutter stays open very long and you can get a lot of moving blur. But be careful with that moving blur. Things can get really blurry really fast. And as you can see, it also makes your image get really bright, which is not good. So you want to find a nice balance to capture your motion without it being blurry, or in some cases without it being too sharp, right? That's the kind of pro stuff that as a beginner you really don't want to know or need to know. All you need to do is hit that M and change it to A, and auto will do all of that for you. And if you want, you just tap that EV that says 0.0 and you scroll in the plus section to get brighter. As you can see, the more plus you go, you get brighter until you see the image that you like on your screen and you snap that shot. Or you can go in the 0 to get a perfect balance, which is not always perfectly balanced all the time. So sometimes you have to go in the minus. Sometimes you have to go into minus, but that gets the image darker, and you would use that on a really bright day when you want to darken things up. It's all up to you. It's subjective. It's like, it's what you want. Don't let anyone tell you what to do, especially as a beginner. You just plus it a little bit or you minus it a little bit, see what looks nice on your screen that you want to catch, because it's all about you, and take that photo or snap that video. Now, right below the red button, the record button on the screen, there's a play button. Now you hit that play, you can go and view the stuff that you took. Like, I can view that picture that I took. Look at that. I can view that picture that I took, and if I hit the bottom left, there's two options. There's the delete, which I won't delete because I like this photo, and then there's a download button where you can download it. Look at that. I'm downloading that photo straight to my phone so I can share it with my family and my friends right away. Now I'm just gonna let that download. Bam, that picture is on my phone and ready to share. Also, there's a cut button where you can trim clips, you can do a little bit of editing. I won't recommend that while the drone is flying. If you land with like 20% battery life, you can mess around with this and cut. You can zoom, you can tone, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can fill. I mean, look at the things you can do, guys. Just play with this thing, you know, just have fun with it. Like, this thing is so much fun. Just look at that. I mean, look at these little features that it has, and you can apply it to all, or you can hit the little check and just apply it to your shot only. You can add text. Look at that. You can add text if you want. I mean, this thing is, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, you can add little animations. There's colors that you can add to it to spruce it up. I mean, guys, you can add music. Like, can you believe this? Right? And I'm doing this while I'm flying. I won't recommend that you do this while you're flying, but I mean, oh my gosh, I've got to turn up the volume to hear the music, so I'm just gonna turn it up a little bit so you can hear it. I mean, look at that, guys. I mean, just, oh my gosh. If I had this stuff when I was learning to fly, oh my gosh, guys, there's never been a better time to fly. There's never been a better time to get into drones. I'm so excited when I see stuff like this, because even I want to do this. I don't want to always do professional stuff all the time. I feel like I'm getting carried away. Back to you guys. Let's focus. So now, at the top left, you have P mode. You tap that, you get sports mode. Sports mode means high speed. I won't advise you mess around with that if you're a beginner. The only time I would use sports mode is if I'm in high wind and I want to get back home fast and there's a lot of wind that's pushing me back, then I'll jump into sports mode. Other than that, I will kind of go with the smooth footage, right? And then there's cinematic mode. That smoothens down everything. It slows your speed down so you can get this nice, buttery, smooth, cinematic footage, right? So you could play around with that. That's something to mess with. That's something to do, right? And that works when you're taking videos, because there's no cinematic when you're snapping a photo. Just thought I'd point that out, right? So I'm going to go back in P mode. This says that I'm in flight. I can set my return to home altitude in meters. I can set my max altitude. I can set my distance limit. Of course, I have it on no limit on the distance. My max altitude means how high I'm allowed to go. In United States of America, you should not be going past 120 because that's 400 feet. So I would not set it past that, but that's up to you, right? Especially as a beginner. Return to home altitude, that's the altitude that the drone will climb up to. I did a video on that. Check this link right here on how to set your return to home altitude so you don't hit anything, right? Especially on the way back, because this drone doesn't have any sensors. It shows you your SD card storage, time remaining for you to use, time remaining on your SD card if you're filming videos, right? It shows you pretty much everything. Available space, return to home. It shows you your flight status, which is normal, so that's great. Just by pressing the in-flight button. Over here, you can see your temperature of your batteries. Batteries look good. I'm at 34% now. I've been hanging with you guys for a while, and it's pretty cool. You can see the temperature, which is good. It's pretty consistent. These three dots at the top right now is your what I would say your main menu. Now safety, which is important, max altitude 120 meters, no distance limit. You can put a distance limit if you don't feel like flying far, you feel like you're gonna get carried away. Return to home altitude, sensors, you can calibrate your compass here, you can calibrate your IMU, you can also see the status here as it says normal, compass normal, IMU normal. If any one of those are not normal, hit that calibrate button and get it done. I show you how to do compass here and IMU. It's in my Mavic mini playlist, so check it out if you want to see how to calibrate those. For remote identification, that's probably coming in 2020. Don't want to talk about it now, especially as a beginner. It's not something you really need to know or I need to cover right now. Find my drone feature. If you ever lose your drone, it falls out the sky, it gets lost, something to that effect, you can find your drone by just tapping there, and it'll show you the exact location of your drone when it last, wherever it was last recorded, which is pretty accurate. People use it. It's a DJI feature that's been in all DJI drones, and most people find their drones back when they use this feature, as long as they don't land in water most of the time. Okay, and then you have advanced settings at the bottom here. As a beginner, you shouldn't even be concerned with this stuff right now. All right, control, you go to control. Flight, again, you can choose your options here: sports, cinematic, smoothness, same thing that you can do from your main screen. Units of measurement, you can go imperial, metric, it's all up to you. I think I'm gonna go imperial. You can see the bottom left is showing feet now instead of meters, so that's what that does. So you change it from metric to imperial depending on what you use. Gimbal has an advanced option which you can change the speed at which it pitches. You see this? If you want to slow it down, just slow it down, and then that, you see how slow it's pitching now? See that? Let me show you. Look how slow it's pitching. Then when I hit the dots again and I up the speed, look how fast it's going to pitch now. Right? So you find the speed that suits you. Right? I'm going to put it back somewhere around halfway. And the smoothness, if you do like this, when you roll the wheel, I'm going to release the wheel. It's going to take a while to stop. It's going to smoothen out. And if you slow it down all the way, it's going to be very abrupt. So from the time I loose the wheel, bam, it's going to stop. Instantly, it's going to stop. Right? So you find a nice point, play around with it, find something that works for you. Right? I haven't found my ideal settings yet because I'll cancel that. Cancel that because I don't really use it. Allow upward gimbal rotation. I'll turn that on, and then look what happens. Let me turn this volume down because I'm at 20%. I'm able to look all the way up. I tell you guys what, I'm gonna land, swap the battery, and we'll continue this. Now go back to my 3 dots, and what I like is when you go back to the 3 dots, it puts you right where you were messing with before. You know, it just doesn't put you into the main menu, it puts you wherever you were before. And now I can turn that on, and look, now look at my gimbal. It doesn't stop there, it can actually go up, 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 up. How about that? So you get that extra zest out of the gimbal, which is pretty cool. I like that option too, but I don't use it often, and it messes me up when I'm filming, so I only turn it on when I want to. And then there's always the reset button you can hit, and that will set things back to what it originally was, which is 30 and 5, which is not bad, right? It's good. It's set pretty okay, but you know, everyone's different. I suggest you mess with it and find the settings that work for you. Okay, so that's it for the gimbal. We'll go back. That's in the gimbal advanced section, and then gimbal mode, there's follow mode and FPV mode. So let me show you the difference between those two. If I were to, let me just make sure I'm clear to the right, I'll go up a little higher, and I'm definitely clear to the left, so I'll go higher. I want to go like 200 feet. It's always good to go high, because the higher you are, guys, generally the safer you are. You won't hit anything high up there, right? So when you want to do any maneuvers, you go high. Now look, I'll put the right stick to the right and just slide to the right, and then I'll slide to the left. Nice and smooth, right? Now go back into my options, and I'll change the gimbal mode from follow to FPV mode. Now look what happens when I slide to the right. Look what happens when I slide to the left. Looks scary, right? Because that's actually what the drone is doing. It's tilting left and it's tilting right. And what that mode does is lock the gimbal so the gimbal will tilt with the drone, as opposed to giving you that smooth cinematic footage. So if you like a little bit of sports, maybe jump into sports mode, see? And then you like that little FPV freestyle stuff, which I don't recommend you do as a beginner. But it's nice to know you have a little pep in your options, right? So we'll put it back on follow mode. And then there's gimbal calibration, which I don't recommend you do while you're flying, right? Although you can do it, and you just hit automatic and it automatically recenters your gimbal. You only do that if your horizon, meaning your image, looks twisted or something to that effect. You can reset it. But hey, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. If your gimbal's working smooth and nice and everything looks nice and level and crispy like mine, don't even touch it. But it's good to know that feature is there if you need it. This is really basic stuff. Stick mode is mode 2. That's the basic mode that everybody flies with. I know some people fly with mode 1. If I were you and you're a beginner, most drones come in mode 2. I recommend that you learn mode 2. If you don't like it and the features are not good for you, then you have different modes that you can switch between and you can customize it, which is not something you would really want to be doing as a beginner unless you come from a heavy RC background where you have been dealing with radio control stuff for years. I don't recommend you mess with this. Just leave it on mode 2. Then there's RC calibration, right? You need to power off the aircraft to calibrate the remote controller. If the controller is not working for any reason, like a stick is not responding, then you would do the RC calibration. But if it ain't broken, don't fix it, right? And then there's flight tutorial. I'm not even going to go in there because I don't feel like watching tutorials, but it's a good resource if you want to. And then at the bottom, finally, there's connect to the aircraft. You can connect to your aircraft in case your aircraft is not binded to your controller for any reason. That's the settings where you go in there under control. Next is the camera. Camera size 4x3 or 16x9. Now, when you switch to 4x3, notice it doesn't do anything here in video. But when I press this to change my settings from video to photo, bam, look how small the photo is. It's in 4x3, right? It's just smaller. It doesn't take up as much as of the screen, and that's for if you're snapping shots for, you know, Instagram or something like that, then you'll use that. However, let me go back into my settings and I go to 16x9. Look at that photo open back up. Bam. Look how wide it is right there. So it all depends on if you're going for, I don't know, a desktop background, you'll go by 16x9. If you're going for a small background on maybe you're going for Instagram or something like that, 4x3. It's all preference, guys. You know, you do whichever one you like, but the option is there to change it. You can format your storage, which I will not do. I will not format my SD card because I just took some nice photos and videos, right? It tells you how much is available. You can reset your camera parameters. That means whatever it came out of factory, it will reset it to what it normally was. And then there's advanced settings. You have the histogram. The histogram is more for professional kind of use, right? I turn it on. There's overexposure warning. I'll turn both on and then I'll explain both for you. Here's my histogram. There it is, moving around on the screen. What does that histogram do? Well, as you can see, I'm peaking. The peak of that graph is to the right. That means I'm erring on the side of blown out. It means my whites are going to get blown out. If I can get that peak closer to the left or in the center or in the middle, then that means my shot is kind of balanced. It's not too dark, meaning the blacks and the dark stuff are still being seen, and the bright stuff like the sky, you can also see details in the sky like the clouds and stuff like that. So ideally you want it in the middle. If you want to move it, look, I'll go to my exposure and I'll bring it to 0. Look at the graph move. I'll bring it to -1. Look at it move over some more, you see? So, but as a beginner, not really a big tool that you would need to use flying this drone. So I'm just gonna close it out as a beginner, and this is for beginners, right? So don't let all of these features confuse you. They're not important. Now these grid lines are like for taking photographs, rule of the thirds. If you come from a photography background, you know that certain things like you focus on, like if I want to focus on this building, I'll put it in the corner over here instead of the middle of the screen. I know you see those stripes showing up. We'll talk about that in a second. So if you want to do the rule of thirds in photography, go look up rule of thirds in photography. If you don't want to get that serious, you just want to snap some photos, then you don't need to have it on, right? But there's many options, right? I like the little pointer on. You see that little cross in the center there? I love to leave that on, but I do not use any grid, so I'll take the grids off. And it's nice, you can have all three, or you can just have two, or you can just have one. That's pretty darn cool, right? So I'll just leave the cross because it helps me to know where is the center point, like what I'm focusing on. So coming to these zebra stripes that you see right now, if I go more in the plus, guess what happened? The zebra took over this sky, right? And if I go in the zeros, the zebra is gone, right? So that tells you if your image is overexposed. EV, which I'm playing right now with, is my exposure value. If it's too bright and I'm losing details in the cloud, that zebra is going to warn me. Right? So if you're very forgetful, you're more concentrating on where you're flying and how you're flying, and you want like these zebra stripes to tell you if you're too exposed or not, right? Then you can use it. I used to use it a lot when I first started out, but I don't use it anymore because, I just have a good eye, I think, for when a photo is exposed properly or not. But it's a very good tool if you're a beginner and you're focusing on the flying and you don't want to mess with the camera too much, but you do want warnings to tell you if you're too bright. Those zebras will definitely tell you if you're too bright or if you're not. So that's what the zebras are. Go back to the setting over here. That's called overexposure warning. The zebras come on and off when you toggle this switch, right? They're called the zebra stripes. Those are actually overexposure warnings. Video subtitles you can turn on. Cache when recording, that means you save, this cache is saving a very low resolution to your phone, right? Maximum video cache capacity means how much do you want to save to your phone in maximum in cache. I really don't like using cache stuff because it really doesn't look good and it really annoys me. But if you want, to save these cache stuff to your phone, go ahead and turn that on. It's not really a big deal, right? It's up to you. So this is how I leave my settings. Anti-flicker is just your refresh rate for your camera, right? I leave it on auto as a beginner. You really don't need to be messing with all this stuff. Okay, we're almost done. We're getting there. Transmission, channel mode 5.8, right? Looks like you're stuck on 5.8. You can't, at least for this model I can't really mess with it much. I can't switch between 2.4 or 5.8. I don't know why, but it's probably just the US model. Maybe other models you can change between 5.8 or 2.5. 5.8 generally is good because it's good for when you're flying in congested areas and there's a lot of Wi-Fi interference and stuff like that coming from all of these buildings that you see around here and all the people that are on Wi-Fi browsing the net. It can mess your Wi-Fi transmission up. So that's pretty much what being able to mess with this does. But as a beginner, not anything you need to focus on. If it ain't broken, then don't fix it. That's pretty much it. Last but not least, there is the about section. Name your DJI Mavic Mini if you want by just pressing here and giving it a nice name if you want. I am not going to name mine. It tells you which model your drone is, what firmware your drone is on, what firmware your RC is on, what firmware your FlySafe database is on. Just gives you all kind of information. Battery serial number, aircraft serial number, the amount of times you charge your battery, your remote controller serial number, your camera serial number, all information that you need pertaining to your drone for any reason at all. One of the first places you need to go is the about section. Guys, that pretty much concludes it. At the bottom left of your screen, if I didn't mention, it tells you your distance. My distance is 249. It tells me my altitude or my height, how high I am above the ground in feet, which is 170 feet. And this little map icon at the bottom here will pull up the map, so you can always have the maps on your screen while you're flying. You can see where you are, and when you move, like when I turn, you see The little triangle turns to show you which direction you're pointed in. It also shows you your home spot over there. That little H is the home, and yes, if you touch it again, the map takes up the bigger portion of the area, and then the actual flight screen gets very small. All right, so pretty much that's your map. This little button to the left here that has a H with an arrow on it, that's your return to home. You also have a manual return to home button right here. You can just press it if you're a manual guy, and that will bring your drone right back home. And you can spend 15 minutes by yourself, or I thank you for spending these 15 minutes with me. Let's go through the app. And guys, happy flying, safe flying. Get out there, fly that Mavic Mini, and have yourself some fun. Last but not least, guys, don't forget to smash that like button. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, whichever one works for you, and make sure you hit subscribe with the bell so you can know when I release more Mavic Mini videos. Please leave a comment, let me know if you found this video helpful, and as always, any video you want me to make, just let me know right in the comment section and I'll work on it for you guys. Until the next video. Still giving away 6 DJI Mavic 2 Pros or Zooms. Head over to my Patreon account, donate $1, become a patron, and automatically you're entered to win a chance to win one of 6 of those drones. Guys, let's make this happen. Come on, support me and help me support you.